I had always been fascinated by the hidden aspects of the internet, the places where normal search engines dared not tread. I spent a lot of my time at the computer since I was a kid, and the dark web, or the deep web, always intrigued me. I was always too scared to go on there. I was always warned to not go on there since it's like the Wild West down there, and anything goes. I've heard stories of people get hacked and found in real life, or tracked down by the police for visiting illegal sites. But now at 20 years old, I figured it was time. Armed with a virtual private network, VPN, and the anonymity of the Tor browser, I delved into the abyss. It was a world of secrets, of illicit transactions, and of the forbidden. Yet, even in the face of danger, I couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. I started looking through some of the basic stuff like drug sites, or pages where you could buy counterfeit money. But as I delved deeper, I began to find things like pages that sell illegal weapons, or allow you to hire hitmen. To me, it was insane to think that someone could just end someone's life for a mere $10,000. As I navigated further through the digital underworld, I stumbled upon a mysterious link. It was a cryptic string of characters that whispered promises of the forbidden. My heartbeat quickened as I clicked on it, the anticipation building in the pit of my stomach. The screen flickered, and I found myself in a place that was very different to any of the other virtual places I have visited thus far. The web page was a grotesque display of a dimly lit room, adorned with deep crimson walls. The air seemed thick with malevolence, and a single bare light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a sickly glow over the scene. In the center of the room was a single wooden chair with straps hanging off of it. A message appeared on the screen. "The show will begin in 60 seconds. What show? I thought to myself. For the next 60 seconds, I sat there glued to my screen, somewhat excited what was going to happen. When the timer hit 0, the numbers disappeared off the screen and spooky but quiet circus music began to play in the background. Shortly after, a man in a pig mask and a butcher's apron walked into the frame of the screen. "Welcome to the funhouse," he said. "Let us bring out our first guest." He then stepped out of frame and moments later returned, struggling with a person that had a bag over their head and had their hands tied behind their back with rope. He forcefully sat them down in the chair and strapped them in. The person was trying their hardest to free themselves from the chair, and in that moment it had dawned on me. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the gravity of what I had stumbled upon. I had stumbled upon a red room. Red rooms were the stuff of internet legend live-streamed sessions where unspeakable acts were performed for a paying audience. The darkness of the deep web had materialized before me, and I was an unwitting spectator. A chat box on the side of the screen buzzed with ominous messages from faceless spectators. The comments ranged from perverse excitement to sadistic encouragement. My hands trembled on the keyboard as I struggled with the reality of what I was witnessing. A knot tightened in my stomach, but an inexplicable force kept me glued to the grotesque spectacle. The victim in the room began to stir, their muffled cries filling the audio feed. The pigman took the bag off the victim's head, and panic and terror painted their eyes as they surveyed the hellish surroundings. I felt a surge of nausea as the situation unfolded before me. The Red Room was not a mere urban legend, it was a nightmarish reality. The ethical boundaries of my curiosity had been obliterated, and the consequences of my actions loomed like an impending storm. Unable to tear my eyes away, I watched in horror as the scene escalated. The captor revealed a collection of tools, each more horrifying than the last. The chat box erupted with macabre enthusiasm, cheering on the tormentor as they orchestrated a grotesque symphony of pain. The realization hit me like a freight train. I was complicit in this abomination. My presence in the audience, though passive, connected me to the atrocity unfolding before me. I grappled with the guilt, the weight of my moral compass shifting in the face of the unspeakable. The first donation of $5,000 popped into the chat box window. It was telling the pigman to take the victim's shirt off and etch a cross into his chest, and that's what he did. He ripped the man's shirt off, took a scalpel or knife of some sort, and slowly cut a cross into the man's chest. The blood-curdling screams of the man made a chill go through my bones, yet I couldn't look away. Next, another donation came through, this time of $8,000. It instructed the pigman to take the drill and drill both of the victim's eyes. As soon as I saw this, I snapped the fuck out of it. Frantically, I tried to close the browser, to sever the connection to the Red Room, but it was as if the digital tendrils had ensnared me. The screen resisted my attempts to escape, and the nightmarish tableau continued to play out with unrelenting brutality. As the minutes stretched into an eternity, the victim's pleas for mercy intensified. The room seemed to close in around me, the malevolence seeping through the pixels and into my very soul. I questioned my sanity, my morality, and the twisted path that had led me to this point. Suddenly, the captive figure turned whatever was left of their eyes directly toward the camera, locking onto mine. Strangely, the connection felt palpable, transcending the digital barrier. In that moment, a realization struck me with chilling clarity. The victim was aware of my presence. The horror etched across their face mirrored my own, a silent acknowledgement of the shared nightmare. As I kept trying to close the browser and turn off my computer with the power button, I noticed a surge of activity in the chat. Someone wrote asking why user 133 wasn't typing anything in the chat. Someone else asked where user 133 was. I looked at the chat option below, and there it was. The website must have automatically generated my alias as user 133. They were on to me. They knew I wasn't supposed to be here. But how the fuck did they know I wasn't typing anything? How were they paying this much attention? The pigman must have noticed this as he stared into the camera for some time, looking at the chat responses. They all started to question me. The pigman's eyes seemed to be filled with suspicion at this point. He addressed me directly. "You're not supposed to be here, are you?" I knew I had overstayed my welcome for way too long. In a desperate frenzy, I started spamming my keyboard frantically, hoping to somehow shut the website off. It worked. I was redirected to the page I was on previously. I quickly shut off my computer, plunging the room into darkness. The monitors flickered and died, severing the connection to the Red Room. Silence enveloped me, broken only by the erratic pounding of my heart. I sat in the darkness, grappling with the enormity of what I had experienced. The Red Room had been a harrowing descent into the abyss of human depravity, and the scars it left on my psyche ran deep. The thin line between curiosity and complicity had been obliterated, leaving me haunted by the echoes of the digital nightmare. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I found myself staring at the lifeless monitors. The Red Room had vanished, but its malevolence lingered in the shadows of my consciousness. The internet, once a realm of endless possibilities, had revealed a darkness that could not be unseen. I wondered why the fuck I ever even went onto the dark web, against everyone's advice and warnings. Out of pure fear, I unplugged my computer and drove it to a dump 2 hours away from my house so they would never find me. On the way back, I knew that I wouldn't ever dare to cross the boundary into the dark web again. If you're ever thinking of exploring the deep web, do it at your own risk. But know this, I have warned you. What you may see, you may not be able to unsee. The hum of my computer filled the dimly lit room as I sat bathed in the eerie glow of multiple monitors. I was known as Cypher. That was my online alias on my favorite deep web forum. I was a skilled hacker navigating the digital underworld known as the dark web, with finesse. You've probably heard of this part of the internet, where essentially anything goes from drugs to hitmen to trafficking. I've seen it all. However, I always made sure to not leave any trace of my activities behind through the use of IP scramblers and other techniques. The dark web was my playground, and that night, I stumbled upon something that ultimately made me retire from hacking. A cryptic message had appeared in one of the forums I frequented. This was unusual, as this has never happened to me before on the forum. The message hinted at a realm far darker than I had ever dared to explore. It beckoned me with promises of forbidden knowledge and untold secrets. Intrigued and lured by the thrill of the unknown, I couldn't resist the temptation. I wanted to know more. The link was heavily encrypted, so it took me some time to crack it. It appeared to have several levels, each one more difficult than the last. As I delved deeper into the abyss of the code, the virtual landscape morphed into a sinister maze of encrypted tunnels and hidden servers. The air grew colder with each keystroke, and a sense of foreboding hung heavy in the digital atmosphere. I navigated through layers of obfuscation, leaving behind the familiar web for an unsettling realm that seemed to exist beyond the boundaries of even where I have been. Finally, after cracking the final level of code, I was eventually led me to a website, its design unsettlingly minimalistic. A single sentence greeted me in stark black letters against a blood-red background. "Welcome to the monastery. Seek the truth, but beware its consequences." Against my better judgment, I clicked further, entering a virtual realm that mirrored a desolate temple shrouded in perpetual darkness. I couldn't make out anything besides a few benches here and there, and a couple lit candles on the floor. The website didn't let me lick on anything, but I noticed that it allowed me to look around and walk, like some sort of video game. A chat box from the website's admin appeared. "Welcome, Truth Seeker. Have a look around." Shortly after, the chat box disappeared, and I decided to do exactly that. As I cautiously advanced, the ambient sounds of the temple became distorted whispers, and the feeling of being watched sent a chill down my spine. The unsettling atmosphere intensified with each step, my senses on high alert. It was as if the digital veil that separated my world from this haunted realm was thinning, allowing something malevolent to seep through. Abruptly, the screen flickered, and the shadows within the desolate temple seemed to come alive. A figure materialized in the distance, its silhouette distorted and contorted, wearing a monk's robe. Panic set in as I realized the figure was heading straight toward me. The whispers grew louder, forming indecipherable religious chants that reverberated through the digital air. Unable to tear my eyes away, I watched in horror as the figure drew closer, its features gradually becoming clearer. The website didn't let me move or look around at all this time. I tried everything, but nothing worked. The figure stopped and another chat box appeared, this time as if it were some sort of dialogue in a game. "You sought the truth, John, and now the truth seeks you." How the fuck did it know my real name? My heart started to pound in my chest and I fumbled to close the browser, but it didn't work. I tried to kill the code that kept me on the site, but that didn't work either. Then a separate chat box appeared. It was from the site admin. "You can't leave, John. Please be so kind and follow our friend here." I was left with no choice but to comply. I couldn't give them any more indication that I did not want to be here. I followed the strange monk-like figure for a minute or so, and it led me to a large wooden door. A chat box appeared again. "Prove to us that you want to know the truth. Go inside." I was too deep in to back out now. I clicked on the door and it led me to a bunch of encrypted code again. I began to solve it, but quickly realized that it was much more complex than I anticipated. The nature of the code was similar to that of the one guarding the entry to the original website, but this one reset itself every 30 seconds if you weren't fast enough at each level. Whatever they were hiding here must be important. Finally, after some time, I solved the code and was presented with a link. I hesitated for a moment, but I clicked. As soon as I did, I was met with a black screen. I stared at it for a few seconds, and that's when some text appeared. It was an IP address written in white text. Seconds later, more text appeared. It was an address. No, it was my address. I watched in horror as more text popped up on the screen. My full name, my social security number, my parents' names, my parents' address, and a photo of my face. This whole thing was a trap, and I walked right into it. Without wasting any time, I yanked the power cord out of my computer, took a magnet, and scrambled the hard drive. Just to be safe, I threw my PC into my bathtub and ran water over it for a good 10 minutes. As this was happening, I sat there wondering how the fuck they got my personal information. I had no social media accounts, and nothing that would link me back to who I am on my computer. I must have made a mistake somewhere on the way in my time as a hacker, and it has cost me. Since then, I've moved states, replaced all of my electronics, and changed my social security number. I haven't gone back to hacking since, and I don't intend to. Still, I get the feeling that certain people that I walk past or interact with in my day-to-day life know who I am. Maybe it's just paranoia, or maybe my mistake from the past is catching up to me again. At the time of me writing this story, I am safe, but who knows for how long.